Elena Vasquez crouched behind the crumbling concrete wall, her rifle steady against her shoulder. The scope revealed enemy movement 300 meters away, but her finger hesitated on the trigger. 6 months ago, she would have taken the shot without thinking twice. Now, everything felt different. The abandoned factory where she currently hid had become her temporary shelter after the most devastating betrayal of her life. Elena had once been the youngest member of the elite strike force Alpha, a special operations unit known for impossible missions and zero casualties. At 19, she possessed an almost supernatural ability with a sniper rifle, capable of hitting targets at distances that amazed even veteran marksmen. Her childhood in the mountain village of San Miguel had shaped her into the perfect soldier. Growing up hunting with her grandfather, Elena learned to read wind patterns, calculate bullet drop, and remain perfectly still for hours. When military recruiters visited her remote school, they immediately recognized her potential. Within 2 years, she had completed advanced sniper training and earned her place among the country's most elite fighters. Strike Force Alpha operated like a family. Captain Rodriguez treated Elena as his own daughter, while veteran sniper Marcus Chen became her mentor and closest friend. The team's bond seemed unbreakable as they completed mission after mission, protecting civilians and neutralizing threats across the region. Elena's reputation grew with each successful operation, earning her the nickname Angel of Mercy for her ability to eliminate targets without harming innocent bystanders. The mission that changed everything started like any other. Intelligence reports indicated that terrorist leader Viktor Kozlov had established a stronghold in the industrial district, planning a major attack on the capital city. Strike Force Alpha received orders to infiltrate the complex and eliminate the threat before civilians could be harmed. Elena's role was crucial. She would provide overwatch from a nearby building while the team moved through the facility. As Elena positioned herself on the rooftop that morning, she felt confident and prepared. Her equipment was perfect, her position ideal, and her team ready for action. The early morning mist provided excellent cover as she settled into her hide, adjusting her scope and checking wind conditions. Everything seemed routine until the first shots rang out. Instead of the controlled engagement they had planned, Elena watched in horror through her scope as enemy fighters poured from every direction. Her team was walking straight into an ambush, but something felt terribly wrong. The enemy positions were exactly where her team should have been safe, as if someone had provided detailed intelligence about their approach route. Elena's radio crackled with panicked voices as her teammates called for backup and medical support. She tried to provide covering fire, but the enemy seemed to know her position as well. Bullets shattered concrete around her hiding spot, forcing her to relocate multiple times. Through her scope, she saw Marcus Chen fall, then watched helplessly as Captain Rodriguez dragged their wounded communications specialist to cover. The battle lasted 3 hours, but it felt like an eternity. When reinforcements finally arrived, Elena's world had collapsed. 4 team members were dead, including Marcus, and 3 others were critically wounded. The mission had been a complete disaster, and somehow Elena found herself being blamed for the failure. In the aftermath, accusations flew like bullets. Intelligence reports suggested that someone had leaked information to the enemy, allowing them to prepare the perfect trap. Investigators pointed to Elena's position, claiming she must have revealed the team's movements. Some suggested she had been compromised or turned, while others implied she had simply failed in her duty to protect her teammates. The evidence against Elena seemed circumstantial but damning. Her radio communications had been intercepted, her position had been compromised, and she was the only team member who hadn't been wounded in the attack. Captain Rodriguez, grief-stricken over the losses, couldn't bring himself to defend her. The military hierarchy needed a scapegoat, and Elena became the perfect target. Within a week, Elena found herself stripped of rank and dishonorably discharged. The official report blamed operational security failures and questionable loyalty, for the mission's failure. Her military record was sealed, her benefits revoked, and her name blacklisted from any security-related employment. The girl who had once been called a hero was suddenly branded a traitor. Elena's family received threatening letters, forcing them to relocate. Her friends in the military were ordered to avoid contact with her. The media picked up the story, painting her as a young woman who had cracked under pressure and betrayed her country. Everything she had worked for, every relationship she had built, every dream she had nurtured, was destroyed in a matter of days. With nowhere else to turn, Elena disappeared into the urban wilderness. She found shelter in abandoned buildings, surviving on whatever money she had saved and odd jobs that paid cash. The skills that had made her an elite soldier now served only to keep her alive in a world that had rejected her. Every night, she replayed the failed mission in her mind, searching for clues about what had really happened. Months of investigation and careful observation led Elena to a disturbing conclusion. The mission had indeed been sabotaged, but not by her. Someone within the military hierarchy had provided information to Viktor Kozlov, setting up Strike Force Alpha for destruction. The betrayal went deeper than she had imagined, involving corruption and treachery at the highest levels. Elena realized that she had been abandoned not because she was guilty, but because she was innocent. Someone needed her to disappear so the real traitor could continue operating without fear of exposure. The young woman who had once trusted the system completely now understood that she was completely alone in her fight for justice. Elena spent the following months gathering intelligence while living in the shadows of the city. Her military training served her well as she learned to move unseen through urban environments, but her new life required different skills. She studied surveillance techniques, hacking basics, and counterintelligence methods using library computers and stolen Wi-Fi connections. The breakthrough came when Elena intercepted a coded radio transmission while monitoring military frequencies from her hideout in an old subway tunnel. The voice belonged to Colonel Harrison, the operations commander who had signed off on the Strike Force Alpha mission. He was arranging another meeting with Viktor Kozlov, discussing payment for continued intelligence cooperation. Elena's blood ran cold as she realized the scope of the conspiracy. Colonel Harrison had been feeding information to enemy forces for months, possibly years. The Strike Force Alpha mission hadn't been a random betrayal. It had been orchestrated to eliminate the unit that was getting too close to uncovering his treachery. Elena's team had died not because of her failures, but because they were about to expose the colonel's activities. Armed with this knowledge, Elena began planning her return. She couldn't simply approach authorities with her discoveries. Colonel Harrison's influence ran too deep, and her own reputation was too damaged. She needed proof that would be impossible to ignore, and she needed to deliver it in a way that would force the truth into the open. Elena started by gathering resources. She broke into an abandoned military depot, acquiring night vision equipment, communication devices, and a high-performance rifle that reminded her of her service weapon. Her grandfather had taught her to maintain weapons, and she spent hours cleaning and calibrating her new equipment until it performed perfectly. Physical preparation proved just as important as gathering gear. Living on the streets had made Elena lean and tough, but she needed to regain her precision shooting skills. She found an isolated quarry outside the city where she could practice without being discovered. Using improvised targets and carefully hoarded ammunition, Elena slowly rebuilt her marksmanship abilities. The psychological preparation was more difficult. Elena had to overcome months of doubt, betrayal, and anger that threatened to cloud her judgment. She developed meditation techniques to control her breathing and heart rate, essential skills for long-range shooting. Each night, she visualized successful missions and positive outcomes, rebuilding the confidence that had been shattered by her disgrace. Elena also studied her enemies more carefully. She learned Colonel Harrison's routines, identifying his security protocols and meeting locations. Viktor Kozlov's organization became her second focus. She needed to understand how they operated and where they were vulnerable. This intelligence gathering required patience and careful observation, skills Elena had developed during her military service. The investigation revealed that Colonel Harrison's corruption extended beyond simple intelligence selling. He was facilitating arms deals, providing advance warning of military operations, and even arranging for certain convoys to be attacked. Dozens of soldiers had died because of his actions, making Elena's fallen teammates just a small part of a much larger tragedy. Elena discovered that Colonel Harrison was planning his largest operation yet, selling detailed information about a major anti-terrorism summit that would include government officials from 12 countries. The summit was scheduled to take place at a mountain resort, and Harrison's intelligence would allow terrorists to plan a devastating attack that could kill hundreds of people. The timeline was tight. Elena had only 3 weeks to prevent the summit attack and expose Colonel Harrison's treachery. She couldn't accomplish this alone. She needed allies, but finding trustworthy contacts seemed impossible given her reputation. Elena decided to reach out to Major Lisa Park, her former weapons instructor who had always shown integrity and independence. The meeting with Major Park took place in a secluded coffee shop on the edge of the city. Elena revealed her evidence carefully, watching for any sign that Park might betray her confidence. To Elena's relief, the Major listened with growing alarm and anger as she learned about Colonel Harrison's activities. Major Park confirmed Elena's suspicions about the scope of the corruption. She had noticed irregularities in recent missions and suspicious casualties that had worried her. However, she had been unable to investigate further due to Colonel Harrison's authority and political connections. Elena's evidence provided the missing pieces that made the conspiracy clear. Together, they developed a plan that would expose Colonel Harrison while preventing the summit attack. Elena would infiltrate the terrorist planning meeting, gathering photographic evidence of Harrison's participation. Major Park would ensure that trusted allies within the military were prepared to act on the intelligence Elena gathered. The plan required precise timing and flawless execution. Elena would have only one chance to photograph the meeting and escape without being detected. If she was caught, both women would likely disappear permanently, just as Elena's teammates had been eliminated to protect Harrison's secret. Elena spent her remaining preparation time studying the meeting location, an isolated warehouse compound where Harrison and Kozlov regularly conducted business. She identified entry and escape routes, optimal observation positions, and potential complications that could arise during the operation. As the date of the meeting approached, Elena felt a familiar mixture of nervousness and excitement that she remembered from her military days. This time, however, the stakes felt more personal. She wasn't just following orders or protecting strangers. She was fighting to clear her name, avenge her fallen teammates, and prevent future tragedies. The night before the operation, Elena cleaned her weapons one final time and checked all her equipment. She wrote letters to her family and to the families of her fallen teammates, explaining what had really happened and expressing her hope that justice would finally be served. Whether she survived the next day or not, the truth would eventually come to light. Elena positioned herself on the rooftop overlooking the warehouse compound at midnight, 3 hours before the scheduled meeting between Colonel Harrison and Viktor Kozlov. Her rifle was equipped with a camera attachment that would capture images through the scope, providing undeniable evidence of the colonel's treachery. The night was clear and still, perfect conditions for precision work. Through her scope, Elena watched security patrols moving around the compound's perimeter. Kozlov's men were professional and alert, but their patterns were predictable. She had studied their movements for weeks and could anticipate their positions with accuracy. The warehouse itself contained multiple levels, with the main meeting room located on the second floor where large windows would provide clear sight lines. At 2:30 in the morning, vehicles began arriving at the compound. Elena recognized Viktor Kozlov immediately. The terrorist leader moved with confidence, surrounded by bodyguards but clearly unafraid. His presence confirmed that this meeting was significant, likely involving the final arrangements for the summit attack. Colonel Harrison arrived precisely at 3 o'clock, driving his personal vehicle rather than an official military car. Elena's heart pounded as she watched the man responsible for her teammates' deaths walk casually into the compound. Through her scope, she could see him greeting Kozlov like an old friend, shaking hands and laughing about some shared joke. The meeting began in the second-floor conference room, exactly as Elena had predicted. She adjusted her scope's focus and began photographing the participants through the windows. The images clearly showed Colonel Harrison examining documents, pointing at maps, and exchanging briefcases with Kozlov's associates. Every photograph provided more evidence of his guilt. Elena was concentrating on capturing a particularly damning image when her radio earpiece crackled with Major Park's voice. "Shadow 1, we have a problem. Military units are moving toward your position. Harrison suspected something and called in a strike force." Looking down from her rooftop position, Elena could see military vehicles approaching the warehouse compound from multiple directions. The vehicles weren't targeting the meeting. They were surrounding Elena's building. Somehow, Colonel Harrison had discovered her surveillance and was attempting to eliminate her before she could expose his crimes. Elena faced an impossible choice. She could abandon her position and escape, but without completing her evidence gathering, Harrison would continue his treachery and the summit attack would proceed as planned. Alternatively, she could complete her mission and try to fight her way out, but the odds of survival were minimal against a full military unit. Through her scope, Elena saw Colonel Harrison speaking urgently into a radio while pointing toward her building. Kozlov's men were also reacting to the approaching military vehicles, grabbing weapons and preparing defensive positions. The entire situation was spiraling toward chaos, and Elena realized that she had accidentally triggered a three-way confrontation. Elena made her decision quickly. She would complete her evidence gathering while creating enough confusion to escape. Her first shot shattered the conference room window, sending Harrison and Kozlov diving for cover. The bullet had been aimed high deliberately. Elena wanted to disrupt the meeting without killing anyone yet. The sound of gunfire triggered immediate responses from all three groups. Military units began advancing on the warehouse, believing they were under attack by Kozlov's forces. The terrorists, thinking they were being raided, began shooting at the approaching soldiers. Colonel Harrison found himself trapped between his official duties and his criminal associates. Elena used the confusion to her advantage, photographing the panicked reactions of all participants. The images showed Harrison clearly coordinating with Kozlov's forces against the approaching military units, providing unmistakable proof of his betrayal. As bullets flew between the warehouse and surrounding buildings, Elena captured evidence that would end Harrison's career and prevent future attacks. When Elena's position finally came under direct attack, she was forced to return fire accurately. Her shots were precise and deadly, eliminating threats while avoiding any engagement that might harm loyal soldiers. She recognized some of the approaching troops as former colleagues who were following orders without knowing the true situation. Elena's radio crackled again as Major Park provided updates on the developing battle. "Shadow 1, friendly units are being redirected. Hold your position for 2 more minutes." Elena understood that Park was coordinating with trusted allies to ensure that the approaching reinforcements would arrest Harrison rather than Elena. The climax came when Viktor Kozlov attempted to escape through a service entrance, carrying the briefcase containing summit intelligence. Elena had a clear shot through her scope, but taking it would mean revealing her exact position to enemy forces. She hesitated for a moment, remembering her teammates who had died because of the information in that briefcase. Elena's shot was perfect. The bullet struck Kozlov's briefcase, destroying the documents and wounding the terrorist leader without killing him. The summit intelligence was secured, and Kozlov was captured by arriving military units who finally understood the true situation. Colonel Harrison's arrest came minutes later as Major Park's allies surrounded the warehouse conference room. The photographs Elena had captured, combined with the physical evidence at the scene, made denial impossible. Harrison's corruption network was exposed completely, leading to multiple arrests and court-martial proceedings. The battle that had started as Elena's attempt to clear her name had evolved into something much larger. Her actions had prevented a major terrorist attack, exposed military corruption, and saved countless lives. The young woman who had been abandoned and betrayed had changed the course of events through skill, courage, and determination. Elena's vindication was complete but bittersweet. Her teammates were still dead, and months of suffering couldn't be erased by official apologies. However, their sacrifice had finally served a purpose, and Elena had honored their memory by ensuring that the truth was revealed. As dawn broke over the city, Elena finally emerged from her hiding place to surrender to military authorities. This time, however, she walked toward them as a hero rather than a fugitive, carrying evidence that would reshape her country's understanding of loyalty, betrayal, and the true cost of justice.